Oh, and I immediately screwed it up. Of course I did. Hang on. There we go. Fixed it. Caught it immediately. So we are fine. Welcome, everyone, to Roll Call. Thank you for joining us today. I have a very special episode planned. Every episode of Roll Call is special, but this one I'm really looking forward to because we have Nick here to discuss GAC in great depth and detail. And
Great depth, great
boy,
detail.
oh boy, do we have a lot to discuss with GAC. But man, Nick, just thanks so much for being on the episode. I wanted to do this with you
Yeah.
for a long time. Just life for both of us has been kind of hectic, so sorry about that. But we also
hmm
came to recently a good kind of pausing moment for GAC story, or at least a big moment for GAC story. So we really wanted to make
Yeah.
sure, like, hey, this is the time to do it. So let's get started. Okay, normally I kind of start with my own questions and then I do some questions that your fellow players had for you. But I feel like sometimes I step on like the toes of like what they've wanted and just like I kind of accidentally pull from things they say. So I'm actually going to start with the questions of your fellow players and then I'm going to move into all my
Oh.
stuff.
Okay. Okay. I'm ready. I think I'm ready.
All right, well we're going to start strong. So I hope you're ready because we're
Okay.
starting with
Oh.
Joe. His question
Real
is
quick before I ask Joe's question, I just
oh,
wanna
go right ahead.
just wanna say a cheers to everybody. Welcome to Roll Call. I'm so happy to be here. Let's get going.
No, is this
Have a
another
good time.
POV thing you're doing?
Yeah,
Uh,
POV. I'm friends with you.
excellent. Cheers.
Cheers.
No, wait, hang on.
All right. I'm ready. After that splashed all over me onto my white shirt, I'm ready.
Hey,
Hey,
this
you got Dr. Peepo.
yeah, man, not sponsored, but I
Not
love Dr.
sponsored. I got
Pepper.
Cherry Coke Zero. You know how it is. I want one of the 13 flavors that's in a Dr. Pepper. All right.
All right, so like I said, we're starting strong. So this is from Joe. So thank you, Joe. Um, Nick, who gave you the audacity to create characters the way you do? I've been your DM for a long time, and you create these absolutely ridiculous concepts, and most of the time they pay off. Who's letting you get away with this, and why has nobody stopped you yet?
Well, the answer to that would be Joe.
All right, next
I
question.
mean, yeah, like who's letting me get away with it? Joe, you're the one that approves the characters. Not with Gak as an example, but yeah, I've been playing with Joe for a long time. Um, if we're not counting one shots, I've had uh four characters in campaigns of Joe's. Um yeah, Joe, you're letting me get away with it. I so for those who don't know, uh in the ancient past of Ephera of um
Ilika?
Illica, that's what I meant.
I
That's why I
understand.
got so the Ephera and then in Evrand is Ephira and then Illica is the all the I's and the E's. I
Yep,
know.
yep.
Joe said that he's an enabler. Absolutely. Um, but yeah, early days of that, where our college day campaigns take place and our characters are strewn throughout the annals of time. But I had a character named Malachite who, and every DM is going to scoff at this, but he had a pet beholder. And listen, Joe and I worked a really long time to find a way to make that work. And part of that included the beholder being missing for half of the campaign.
I
In the
see.
session zero, them being separated. But yeah, listen, the magic of D&D, and I will stand by this. The thing that makes it so good is having DMs and other players that trust you with what you're doing and knowing that there isn't a way to win D&D, but there's a way to collaboratively make a story and allowing a player to have a really stupid idea and find a way to shoehorn that idea into something that works within the overall story. That's the magic of D&D, and I think that I'm constantly trying to do something that I haven't seen done before in D&D because there's so many options. Not and this is it's going to sound a slight against Joe, but like not everyone has to be a human fighter, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, oh,
Oh no, but
oh,
like I like to do
damn,
something that I just haven't seen, you know. So hey, a fire genasi barbarian that is very mild mannered and has a pet beholder. That's fun.
hmm No, I totally get that, and I think that you touched on it well, that like I think it's one of the great strengths of Joe and John, if not their greatest strength, is their ability to adapt to like the ideas that we have and to very quickly kind of go like, okay, is this plausible? Sure.
Hmm.
Does this like break the game or cause a problem in a way that might be problematic for me later?
Not yet.
No. Is this setting up? Yeah. Is this setting up me to fail like later down the road? No, I don't think it is. Cool. Let's do it. You know,
Yeah.
like not quite as silly as anything that like Gak has ever done, but like in Isles of Iverion, one of my like favorite kills that I've ever gotten in the campaign was, long story short, we were traveling through the corpse of a dead god. It's a long story. But
Classic.
basically, yeah, basically like it was very much like Nowhere from like Guardians of the Galaxy. Not that like it was a whole city, but it was like, people were taking like the bone marrow and the blood because like it was a
Hmm.
powerful being that even though it had died, it could still be used for all this stuff. But basically like it was almost like the veins of like blood was basically like hotter than magma type stuff. Like if you fell in, it was just like you were toast basically. And so we were in this fight and we were fighting all these monsters, but there was this huge creature on like one side of like a cliff, and there was a chain that connected these two cliffs, and we were able to run across the chain, and it seemed like we were able to get away from the monster. And I kind of looked back and I was like, that thing is huge, and I know that strength is like your stat for determining jump. I was like, I think this thing can jump over here. And so I told Joe, I was like, I want to hold my action. He was like, okay, what do you want to do? And I was like, I have an immovable rod. I want to hold my action that if this thing jumps at us, I want to jump up and click the rod in place so that it crashes against it and hopefully falls into the lake of lava. And he kind of thought about it and he was like, yeah, you can do that. That's how an immovable rod works. But he was like, okay, well, here's the thing. He jumps. Immovable rods, they can make a strength check, so he'll get to make that because it is possible to move an immovable rod despite the name. It's very hard, but it's possible. So he rolled, failed, and he was like, but hey, he is like at the edge of a cliff because you obviously didn't like jump off and activate it. You kind of did it towards the edge. He's going to make a dexterity saving throw to see if he can hold on. Failed. Boom. Thing just fell into the lava, landed, died immediately. And I was like, that's one of the coolest things I've ever done because,
Yeah.
Joe was like, huh, wasn't expecting it, but also it's not game breaking. It's fun, and I know that Joe loves the immovable rod, so I think he was totally fine with giving that thing a
Oh yeah.
kill.
You got to play into the bias of the DM sometimes.
Oh,
If when I'm
100%.
playing GAC, I'm like, what would John think is cool? And sometimes you just got to go for it. There's a one of my favorite game breaking moments I've ever experienced in D&D. It was in one of our college sessions. Connor, who was in Salamander Coast, I think his character was Ishna. If that's no, that's the wrong
Ishno was the
name.
Starborn
Yeah,
Nightmare,
yeah, I
so.
know. My brain is shutting down today. What he was the monk character in Salamander Coast.
Oh, Ashima.
Um Ashima, yeah. Connor was in our college game and he had a character who obviously had uh dark vision, and we were going through a cave and there were other characters who didn't have dark vision, and he asked Joe, "Can I cast minor illusion in front of me and make it look like the way the cave looks?" And then as we walk, I change it so it looks like the cave. And Joe just did his thing where he goes, and he was
Classic
like, "Yeah,
Joe.
yeah, you can do it." So it was just like the way that we imagined it was, from his point of view, it was like it was glowing, like outlining, like in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater,
Oh,
where it's like,
okay.
this is where you grind. Like it was like that, but with the map and just walking through this cave. It was like, well, now we never need dark vision again. It was so game breaking.
See, what I'm picturing is like the from Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, that like screen that they make that like makes it
Yeah.
look like they're not there and they're just pushing it forward. But it's the opposite.
Yeah.
It shows what in front of you looks like lit up.
Crazy.
That's hilarious though.
Yeah. A crazy, crazy use of dark vision and minor illusion.
A
I
cantrip
don't
of all
recommend any
things.
DMs yeah. Yeah. I don't recommend any DMs letting their players do that because it will lead to other things, but wow. That was so funny. Like I strive to do something like that every session.
But that's another one of the beauties of like D&D is that like things can like be changed because sometimes like I'll come up with like an item for like Gideon, and I'm like, hey, I have this idea. And John's like, I don't know. Like, I mean, he's usually pretty quick to approve, but it's always just like, but hey, if we find out it's like way too strong, we can nerf it. Like we can,
Yeah.
like, I'm not gonna lock you in of like, well, you said it can do this. So yeah, I just flexibility is a huge thing in D&D.
Oh yeah.
All right, we're gonna jump to a few other questions. Kayla had like three
Perfect.
questions for you, so we're gonna hit her next.
Okay.
Um,
Thank you for the questions, Joe.
Was Gak the first character you thought of for Evrand, and how did you create Gak as a character?
Interesting. Yeah, I think he was. Uh I had come up with a couple other characters because I had never played with John before. And I came up with the idea of a wizard who couldn't read. And I was like, all right, I need some backups just in case this guy does not like this idea. But yeah, Gak was the first character I came up for Evrand. I've had the concept for a while. I have a Google Doc
Oh.
that is just character ideas and reference images. And that's it. I don't have them fleshed out. Some of them have names, and that's what the character idea is. Like the character is like, I like a guy named Hawk Mountain. That's fun. Put that down there. Um,
Can I
but no,
pause
I
you real
had
quickly?
yeah.
At work, we were getting a friend of mine. This was like years ago. He really wanted to play D&D, and he really wanted to create a character named Rocco Nighthawk, which I thought was like that's like the fucking coolest name for like no reason. Like Rocco
Yeah.
Nighthawk, like this dude sounds like a badass. So now it just became a joke that any game he was in, I always had an NPC that was named Rocco Nighthawk doing just amazing things in the background for no reason.
Good.
So
That's
sorry, I
that's
just
such a good name.
Rocco Nighthawk, and then I think oh yeah, I brought Rocco Nighthawk into Isles of Iverion briefly because there was a card tournament.
Ooh.
And so that was, and Gemma was trying to win the tournament. She was the only one participating. So Joe was like, "Hey, you guys are gonna play her opponents," and so I played as Rocco Nighthawk, the professional Kingdoms and Cards player tournament contestant.
Well, hey, he's official in the world.
So I'll have to sneak him into Evrand at some point.
Yeah. This
Oh,
was
sorry,
the
continue.
I actually have this pulled up. So the original idea for Gak was just written as Goliath Wizard. Can't read but can draw pictures. And then it had this concept art.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it's obviously blurry and stuff on this camera, but it was like the only thing that came up at the time for Goliath Wizard when you typed in on Google. Funny enough, when you type in Goliath Wizard on Google right now, your boy comes up, which is really
Really?
cool. Yeah, like everyone go check it out real quick. I'm typing it in right now. Goliath Wizard, the first thing that comes up on Google is a picture of Gak.
Under
And then
like
the
Google
fourth
Images
thing,
or just Google or what?
just Google, the
Oh,
first thing that comes up, it says images for Goliath Wizard, and it's right there.
yeah, I see that. That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
so cool. And then the fourth thing is the reference image that I had. That just gave me the idea for it. But
Wow.
yeah, look at me. I'm the face of Goliath wizardry.
That's actually kind of rad.
Yeah, very cool. But yeah, Gak was one of those ideas that I liked the juxtaposition of a wizard that can't read. And one of my goals in D&D for some reason is to find complicated ways to do things. And I was like, how do we go about a wizard that can't read? And thankfully John was on board. The discussions when I first met with John were very interesting because he was just trying to wrap his mind around how we would make this work. And my way of approaching it was like, so a wizard has books in a spell book and they copy spells into that spell book and they read the spells and that's how they know it. And then they can cast it as long as they have their arcane focus or whatever. They don't have to be reading the spells necessarily, but they have it. Anyway, is there a way that like reading doesn't have to be with words necessarily? Like you can read something, people can read bathroom signs, even though there's just a little stick figure of a person on it. And they're
True.
like, oh, I know that's the men's room. So what is the definition of that? And John and I created a subclass called the School for the Gifted that uses wisdom as a spellcasting modifier. And I don't know, I think it's made for some really interesting role play because obviously the class features are based on wisdom and not intelligence, but everything else is the same. So he doesn't have a high investigation, but he has a high perception, and being able to play with a wizard that doesn't follow any of the traditional skills that a wizard would have based on ability scores and stuff. So yeah, Gak was my first choice for Evrand,
Well,
and I'm happy he's here.
yeah, I was about to say, I'm glad you stuck with him and didn't second guess or anything, because he has been an
Hey,
absolute delight.
you could have been playing with Hawk Mountain.
Hawk, Hawk Mountain. Oh, all right. Another one I'm excited for from Kayla, because I know we've talked about how if Ever and Ever went live action, you'd want Brendan Fraser to play Gak, which I
Yeah.
love that. But Kayla wants to know specifically if you could cast a famous comedian to play Gak, who would you cast?
Ooh,
Because Brendan Fraser's a comedic, he can be a comedic actor, but he's not a comedian.
right. Hmm. That's interesting because it's a lot of times comedians will like surprise people with their ability to do things that aren't comedy. Like when Jim Carrey started doing non-comedy movies, people were like, "That guy can be serious,"
He
and
can
the same with
act.
Adam Sandler and Uncut Gems and things like that.
Yeah.
So like right now, there's not a specific comedian that's coming to mind, but I feel like there's plenty of comedians who have the range, you know, because like Gak is a super funny character, but it's all based on how he views the world as opposed to making jokes. So finding someone who will approach Gak not from a comedy point of view, but from a just like in
Sincere.
like yeah, sincerely believing what this character believes and knows and like what his mindset is. Um man, wow, that's hard. Part of me like wants to just say my favorite comedian because I would like to see him try it. I would die of happiness if I saw Tim Robinson try to play Gak. That would be very funny. He could kind of do the voice, I think. But like that would be wild. That would be so stupid, Tim Robinson.
We should have like a behind the scene featurette of all the, like,
Yeah.
not a sincere audition, but it's more like a sketch where Bill Burr tries to be Gak, and he's just like, "Get out of my way, you fucking broad," just like, just he's not
Yeah.
being Gak, he's just being Bill Burr doing Gak
Yeah.
things.
He's like, I got this fucking frog on my shoulder.
Oh my god, am I running out of paint shit to do?
I can't read. Damn it.
How the fuck should I know where to go, Gideon? Oh, I'll read the signs. I'll read the signs, Gideon. Is that what I should do?
Is that what I should do? Me, the guy who can't read? Is that what I should do, Gideon?
You're how stupid you
Great
sound
idea.
right now.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know in terms of a comedian to play Gak. That's interesting. We'd have to have auditions, I think.
Perfect.
I'd have to see what they can do.
All right, last question from Kayla. What parts of you are most like Gak, and what parts are super different from Gak?
The parts of me that are most like Gak is my ADHD. I think that
Okay.
that yeah, I think that's absolutely accurate. I've realized that whenever I've come up with D&D characters, and everyone knows that like a D&D character is just like a sliver of your personality that you kind of turn into a whole thing.
Mhm.
And I've realized that a lot of my characters have come out of moments in my life that I need certain things, and vice versa. They will inform those things about me. So, like, when I came out with my character Stein, that was in our second campaign we did with Joe in college. He was a very charismatic character who was just an asshole. And the whole campaign was he was like learning to not be an asshole, basically.
Mhm.
and learning how to reel that in and feel humanity. And that was dealing with like the part of me who can't turn off being funny sometimes, especially at that point in my life. I felt like I wasn't having as many genuine connections with people because I was just performing. So I subconsciously created Stein and gave him this arc of like trying to reel in the performance nature of himself, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize I was doing it, but that's it. Kind of informs yourself that way. So GAC kind of came out around the time that I got diagnosed with ADHD, and the part of my life that was getting really bad with being able to focus and being scatterbrained and things like that. So uh, I truly like I take GAC and put him alongside like neurodivergence
Mm-hmm.
in my head, and it's kind of the encapsulation of that part of my personality and the childlike part of me that has always been around and that I've realized is kind of part of hyperfixation, which is a thing that a lot of different neurodivergent people deal with. So I've always considered myself. I I when I was a kid, people would tell me I was mature for my age, and then as I got older, people would tell me I was being childish, and I was like, maybe I'm just enjoying life. Like maybe there's somewhere in between that is not actually based on age, but I don't know, playfulness and all that stuff. I have a blast playing Gak. He's by far the character I've enjoyed playing the most because of that. I get to tap into that part of myself that just likes being around people and likes enjoying what he's doing.
Oh
So I
yeah.
would definitely say that playfulness and the neurodivergence is the part of me that Gak is like. And then the part that he's not like, I guess, is too trusting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that he's very, very trusting, and it's the part of me that I can tell is there, but I actively push off. Like Gak is inside somewhere, and the other voices and other aspects of my brain keep him in line.
Right.
So luckily, I don't think I'm as trusting as Gak, even though there's nothing wrong with being trusting. It's just knowing when is the right time to
Yeah,
trust
the
somebody.
line. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally fair. All right, and I have a question from Jonathan, your DM.
Jonathan.
Da-da-da. Sorry, one quick second. It is. There we go. If there is one thing you can take back that Gak has done in this campaign, what would it be? And if there isn't anything, what is something you wish Gak would have done but didn't?
Hmm. Um, I don't think I would take back anything. I think Gak would take back things. There are things that Gak has done that he wishes he hadn't done, but there's nothing that I wish he hadn't done, if that makes sense.
100% makes sense.
There's a lot of things that I'm like, oh, that was great for the story. Gak regrets it, but it was great for the story.
Mm-hmm.
Um, biggest thing for Gak would be the encounter with Eldar. You know,
The magic
killing
missile.
Eldar. Yeah. Um,
You didn't kill
that
him,
is
you
something.
maimed him.
That's true. Well, no, he did die, and they had to, or he was unconscious. Like he had to do
Yeah,
death saves, and yeah, yeah, that's crazy.
he was mostly dead. He wasn't fully dead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He was doing death saves. um, but yeah, Gak regrets it, even though I don't think he should because he wasn't aware of the situation. Um, but yeah, that would probably be the moment that he regrets the most, and I think Gak regrets uh, ever having the book, which again I think is an unfounded regret because he had no idea. But it put the people he cared about in danger, even though if he didn't have the book, he wouldn't have those people he cared about. So,
Mm-hmm.
but he doesn't know that. He doesn't think that far ahead, as most people don't with regret. They just think about something that they wish they changed and not what actually led to that situation. Um, but yeah, and what was the second part of John's question?
Well, the question was if you wouldn't change anything, what's something you wish he would have done?
Mm. Um, I think there's a lot of conversations that I wish I could have had with Gak at certain times, but didn't feel like it fit right with the story we were trying to tell. Like not wanting to take up too much time during a session or stuff like that. Like best example from the last, well, not the best, but most recent example from the last session, uh Gak had a talk with Enid about how when she was hanging out with Brack, he was seeing his two sisters together.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it was basically just the same day or the day after, um,
Same day.
yeah, same day, that was like 4 sessions ago. And that was something that Gak was actually going to say to Enid when the earthquake happened. And I was planning it, but I just kept waiting because I was like, oh, well, John's narrating. These people were having a thing. I'll wait for a second. And then the
Yeah.
earthquake happened, and I was like, crap, I didn't have the time. And it's little things like that, but there's nothing major, I'd say, that Gak regrets or that I regret Gak not doing or wanting him to do. I think that I like the way the story's played out. Because again, it's not a, you can't win and there's not a main character type thing. So
Right.
there's nothing I really regret because it all made way for other people to have moments and things like that.
So I was gonna bring this up later, but I have a question because it kind of coattails into this, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know if you've thought about it. I'm guessing you have, but I'm curious. And if you don't want to talk about it because maybe you have plans for it to come up in campaign, that's totally
Mm-hmm.
fine. But I'm curious, does Gak feel guilty that he convinced Gideon and the party to return to the material plane to deal with the book, and Gideon didn't get to go find his uncle because of that?
Yeah, yeah. So that is one thing. That this whole situation, Gak feels guilty about still. Uh, he feels guilty that we had to rush to do the book, and even though he was being like pressured to do it, and there was like an urgency to it, and he was like, "Well, I, I don't know what to do," because I think even in the moment he was like, "Well, maybe we split up, or I can just." I think I at Nick knew that the whole party was gonna go, but Gak was like, "I can just go and do it.
Oh, for
Like I
sure.
can go. You guys go to because he didn't want to." And I think there was a moment I think where Gak came up to Gideon and was like, "I want you to know that like your situation isn't less important." I think there was a little small talk where he was like, um, "I want to," or maybe it was with someone else. I just remember there being a thing of like, your thing doesn't matter less just because we have to do this now, and that we'll be back one day.
I don't remember that, but so much has happened since then. It's hard
Yeah,
to remember the individual moments.
and that's possibly one of the things that I wanted to say, and then it didn't come up because of other things happening. But that's kind of how Gak feels about it, and if he hasn't said that to Gideon, he will. But um, yeah, he was upset that he had to switch the plan really and make us go and do something else when something hadn't really been finished. And then the whole book situation was bad. And
Yeah.
he was like, well, now these people have to sit here with this. And then he's like, well, maybe we can go see my family and that'll be happy. And then that led a bunch of stuff into his family's area with the portal opening with Vandrin and all that stuff. So it's like, he's like, can people stop? Let me have something and
Can,
let's just have a chill time.
can we breathe for like 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Yeah, Gideon feels bad because he feels bad. And like I know that sounds dumb, but like
Mm-hmm.
obviously like finding someone in his family and like his people as a whole that's still alive would mean a lot to him. And like but like he understands that like the party had just done this huge thing for him by basically freeing him from Ishta's clutches to where like he's completely free to do his own thing now. And then Gat comes in and he's like, "Hey, there's this book thing. People are in danger. Like, I think we got to go take care of it." Gideon was like, "Well, I can't possibly argue that like, well, no, we still have to do my other thing after you guys just did this
Yeah.
gigantic favor for him, which the party didn't have to be involved with that at all." You know, and then but I think it was really hard for him to not go find his uncle, realize this book thing was like, well, that was a fucking trap the whole time. So like we didn't even
Hmm.
need to do that. And then immediately go see Gak's family after that. I think that was really hard for Gideon, which is why Gideon didn't
Yeah.
talk much that session because it was really hard for him to be like, I could have had a moment like this potentially, and
Yeah.
I gave it up, and it was the right thing to do, but that doesn't mean it doesn't suck.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm really
Yeah.
looking forward to that kind of coming up and being discussed more.
Yeah, I think that'll be fun. I definitely, if I didn't have that talk with Gideon, I'm going to. Because I think that's a very nuanced thing, especially I think now after the book thing, and this will go into a topic we'll talk about later, I'm assuming, but like Gak has gotten more mature just in his view on life. So I think him being able to put to words the idea of like, hey, it wasn't like your thing isn't not important just because we had to move on and then we have to come back later. Like that doesn't mean it doesn't matter. Like I think Gak will be able to put those to words a lot better than he would have previously.
No, I would agree with that. All right. Also, just so, as a fun note, Rachel said that she lives with you, so if she has any questions, she can just bother you on her own time. So,
That's true.
so she doesn't really have anything to add here for this segment. I just wanted you to know. It
Perfect.
just made me laugh reading that because I was like, I mean, she's not wrong. She could
Yeah.
just ask you at any point.
Yeah, and she does live with me.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah.
All right, so if you had to pick a top three kind of like defining moments in the campaign that have shaped GAC, what do you think those three would be?
Um I think it I think I can pick them pretty easily, I guess.
Okay.
Probably the Eldar fight. Um him going to the school in Aelden and learning that he was more knowledgeable
Better.
than than the students, and then finding out that he can do magic without the book. I think those three moments probably changed him the most, pretty distinctly. And there's other smaller moments, but I think those
Oh yeah.
three in particular. Yeah.
I'm really glad we got that payoff of like the that GAC again didn't need the book because very early on in the campaign, Gideon gave GAC that ring and
Mm-hmm.
he literally held the book away from GAC and he was just like cast a spell,
Mm-hmm.
like I want to see you do it. So I'm glad that my faith in GAC was rewarded. It was like, yeah,
Yeah.
it was never the book. Like the book might have helped, it might have been the spark that ignited it, but it was never
Yeah.
like 90% of the book, 10% GAC. If anything, it was the other way around. So I thought that was
The book was
very
just
cool
his
payoff.
arcane focus at that point.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Because there was a moment with Clara too, where, and it's when he learned Blur,
Oh
um,
yeah,
where Clara had the book away and he cast it, and it kind of cast. It was there for like a couple seconds and then went away, but she was like, hmm,
curious, curious.
yeah. So I do think those three moments are pretty big for him.
No, that's kind of I figured I was pretty certain on like two of those. So the third one,
Yeah.
I like that one a lot. For GAC, I think it's very safe to say that across all of the campaigns in RWA, and this is not a slight on anyone else, but I think to say that GAC is the most unique of the PC characters, I don't think is a lie. So I'm curious that like with GAC, I mean, he doesn't have this like sad backstory that kind of was like this like call to adventure of like wanting to better things or wanting to like regain power, control. Like GAC kind of had no call to adventure. He was just like, well, I'm just gonna go do this. Okay, bye. And family was like, okay, I love you, see you soon, come back and visit. It was just this very like
Hmm.
it was like a kid go like literally a kid going off to like college, or
Yeah.
going off to backpack Europe or whatever.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, were you kind of concerned at all? Like, what was kind of like the process behind like making that decision? Were you concerned that there weren't enough like hooks for Gak to like tell a story for John? Just I'm kind of curious. Like, walk me through your thoughts with making that decision.
Um, yeah. Well, first off, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. When I was coming up with the character idea with John, I was kind of explaining to him that I liked, and I've mentioned this a couple times, but I like doing juxtapositions of what's expected in D&D. So wizard can't read, barbarian who's not angry, all
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. Um, I was like, man, it'd be really funny if, because I was thinking about the whole tragic backstory thing and how so many people, it's like a ongoing joke in the D&D community that like someone has at least a parent who's dead. If you're a D&D character, one of
Yeah.
your parents is dead. They have to be. Uh, and I went, well, not only that, what if his parents were like super supportive? Like they just love him to death. They believe in him and think he can do anything. And he is an adventurer purely because he wants to help people. And like that's it. And I feel like his call to adventure is curiosity. Like he was just like, "Oh, I can do these magic things. Is there anywhere I can go to learn how to do more?" And they were like, "Yeah, there's a college over there." And he's like, "Okay, I'll go there. Bye."
See you later.
And yeah, and a lot of people's call to adventure, their tragic backstory, all these types of things that a lot of characters have, end up kind of feeling like they're a mini campaign or could have been turned into sessions. You know, like the things that Gideon has gone through in his backstory could have been sessions of D&D. Like it was this little arc that he went through that turned him into who he is now.
Yeah.
And Gak's call to adventure is the campaign. Just he ran into a group of people who were helping people and he's like, "Hey, I'm doing that." And then did it. And I think one I was never really worried about like not having enough to build a story off of, I think, because and again, luckily enough that John um worked with me on this. I had a very bare bones backstory for Gak and not bare bones in terms of there wasn't anything there, bare bones in the details. So like I had from the very early on, I had that Gak's two parents were exiled from a Goliath tribe. The Goliath
Oh,
tribe was in the yeah, I had all of that. They were in
okay.
the mountains and I even had the name of the tribe that they were in. And then I was like, but that's it. I don't know why. I don't know who. I don't know what they did. I don't know where they went. I just know that that's something that happened. So I almost gave his parents a tragic backstory. Like I was like,
There
there's
we
some
go.
conflict.
Yeah.
There's some sort of conflict in the family. Um, but I had these like breadcrumbs in a Google Doc that I sent to John, and I went, these can come up, and if you'll allow me, I'll just start making stuff up and just say that that's something Gak did. And John's like, yeah, yeah, that's fine. Like all the times it became a recurring thing of Gak saying, "Hey, that reminds me of a story that my mom used to read me," and then I would just make up a story,
Hmm.
and it would be determined as Gak misremembering the story, and that's why the stories were so messed up. But I would just make it up, and then it became canon that that's a story his mom read. And I even had it in my Google Doc that his mom was a druid, and that
Oh.
he heard the house and the surrounding area were protected by some sort of druidic magic. But Gak was not aware of it. He just knew that no one comes in, and that's it. So it was a fun kind of give and take, and I think that John enjoyed it. Just kind of allowing him to do. I was like, hey, you can do whatever you want with it. Like, just take this and whatever you want, as long as it fits into these like parameters that I came up with. I don't care what happens. So, it was fun, kind of having a character so loose that I can just kind of do whatever in the moment and it fits.
No, I dig that. It's just interesting for me to hear about like the creative process because like that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to get back into roll call again was to like hear about like what everyone's creative process is.
Hmm.
So like for you, I know you talked about like that kind of like playing against type with like the wizard who can't read and stuff like that. So I mean, is that for you kind of like a goal you kind of have for yourself with like every character you make, basically?
Yeah.
I find that really interesting because this is going to be interesting because it won't seem that way, but hear me out. But like for so Gideon is the only character on RWA that I've made for a campaign that started from the beginning. Everyone else I joined partway through.
Mm.
And the way that I make characters joining a partway through campaign versus a brand new campaign are different.
Yeah.
When I have a character that joins a new campaign, one of my personal goals is I was like, I want them to have a flaw to where if it's not addressed by the end of the campaign, they could be the villain by the end of the campaign. Because I always want to have the group change my character. Like
Yeah.
that's something that I want to show that like by being with these people they become better, they become stronger, like they have fundamentally changed who they are. And like that was one of the things that I made with Gideon. Like I wanted there to be a potential for him to not be a great person by the end of the campaign if his views and his thoughts and a lot of the ways that he viewed things hadn't changed. So
Yeah.
I just find it interesting
That's
because
really fun.
two very very different approaches to characters, and in the same campaign, seeing that
Yeah.
coexist is just very neat. I think.
And the characters get along so well.
Gak and Gideon, I mean, like I love all the characters, but I love the Gak and Gideon relationship because I think you and
Yeah.
I just have always played it off very well.
Mm-hmm.
When I made Gideon, I didn't want him to be your typical like well, I studied and I know the weave and the fiber of every thread. Like I didn't.
Yeah.
I wanted to avoid that because I've played with wizards like that and they actively make me hate campaigns. Like I hate when people are like, I have the highest intelligence stat, so if you don't listen to me, you're just a fucking idiot. Like I hate that
Mm-hmm.
so much. So I always wanted Gideon to be like very open to things, so he's always been completely fascinated by Gak because he's never heard of anything like this. But Gideon also believes in like innovation and moving forward and like accomplishing new things. So that's why like he's so excited for Gak because he was like, this could change the world. Like if there's people who can learn how to do magic like this, like that would just be incredible. And so yeah, I've always enjoyed their dynamic greatly, and I hope you have
Yeah.
too. Like I love their relationship. So
I do. I think one of the things that's so fun is like Gideon now at least is a sorcerer
yes,
and Gak is a wizard, but based on their personalities, I think you'd assume the opposite.
I completely agree with that.
Like they very much fit the other style, and I think that's a fun combo there. Like personalities clashing with the class and not clashing with the other person who should fit the other description, you know.
Yeah,
Um I just think that's fun.
I think it's fun to have those like subclasses like that like John allowed us both to make where it's like yeah Gideon's a sorcerer but it's based off his intelligence because
Mhm.
I was like it make no sense to have because obviously I could have just been like well his 20 intelligence is now just 20 charisma but I'm like but Gideon's not a charismatic person
Yeah.
like he can explain the details like he can convince people through logic but he's not like come fight for me my friends like
Mhm.
like not someone like Rian is who are it's just like man
Yeah.
people like this guy and they want to follow him and then you have Gak who's just very like perceptive and he views the world through such a different lens. I think wisdom is his highest stat, correct? I haven't
Oh
looked at
yeah.
Gak's character sheet in a while. Yeah, like having wisdom be his highest stat just like makes sense. So yeah, I think it's really cool to see how these kind of basic fundamental rules of magic are completely changed with these two characters and how they play
Yeah.
off of each other so well. So I think that was just kind of a nice reflection that we in no way planned whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. It just happened to fit. And they're
Mm-hmm.
both the G names.
They do. Did you know that
Yeah.
if you respell Gideon, it spells Go Enid? I I realized that the other day, and I was like, I don't know when I'm gonna fit that into the campaign, but Gideon's probably gonna say it as a joke in his deadpan voice, and no one will laugh at it, and he'll be like, "Okay,
Okay. No, that's so
still working
good.
on that."
I love that. Yeah, I love the I think I'm glad that you think wisdom being Gak's highest score makes sense. Because I've been trying to play that. Because another one of the juxtapositions I like is obviously intelligence is not his strong suit, but wisdom is often associated with intelligent people.
Mm-hmm.
Like the concept of wisdom. When you think of someone that's wise and on a hill, they're probably just smart and on a hill. Like they're probably just really smart. They're not like perceptive necessarily. They're living on
Right.
a hill. They have a lot of knowledge. And I liked playing against that where like people would think that Gak is naive and naivety is kind of the exact opposite of wisdom. And yet he has a high wisdom. Like his passive perception is 23.
I love having high passive perceptions because he has
It's
observant,
so
right?
good.
That's why it's so high.
Yeah,
Love
yeah.
observant.
And Gak is just so he's just so observant. He reads people, which kind of lends itself to the neurodivergence that I was talking about. Like there's a lot of trying to read social cues and like looking at someone's body language and trying to figure out what that means and how people are presenting themselves. And I think that that's Gak's kind of whole thing. He's looking around and he's getting a lay of the land of who these people are, and but he doesn't have the intelligence to know what to do with that sometimes. Like he can still say something that's not reading the room because he understands that he's like, "Oh, these people are upset. I'm going to make them happy." And then they're not
Brownie.
in the mood. Yeah, exactly. Um but kind of dealing with the difference between intelligence and wisdom is so much fun, and I like that Gak and Gideon are kind of that's their thing. Like that's especially they have custom subclasses for wisdom and
Yeah.
intelligence, but like that's their embodiment.
Well, I never really thought about it like that, but and I think that this is just like when you play a character, like their mannerisms just kind of become their own. But like I feel like Gideon gets frustrated because, not to brag, but like he's so smart that he sees all these pieces, but he's frustrated that just like in his little world that they can't fit together, and like not everything that he wants to have happen can happen. Whereas Gak realizes that very easily. That's just like, well, we got to go do this. And Gideon's like, but I've made all these sacrifices and I've done all these things. Like, why can't I just go there and find my family? Like, why do I have to have a sad ending? Instead of being like grateful for like, well, hey, you're free from Ishna, like you're with your friends. Because like he sees all these pictures and it's so hard for him to like, it's almost like he doesn't see the full bigger picture. He just sees all these scattered pieces and he's just like, why do none of these go together?
Yeah.
And I think it's an interesting dynamic that the two have. But Gideon is just
Yeah.
like barely wise enough that he kind of contains it because he knows it's not fair to let that out on other people. Not because
Hmm.
he's wise, but he's just like, well, logically, this isn't their fault. I need to be grateful, but god damn it, I'm so mad.
Yeah. It seems like Gideon sees a bunch of pictures and assumes that they go together to make one big one, whereas Gak sees a bunch of pictures and puts them on a cork board and attaches them with string. Like he's like, "Oh yeah, these just lead to this. They're not one big thing. This picture doesn't line up with this one like a puzzle piece. It's just all the pictures together tell a story as opposed to being the story."
Most said I hadn't thought about it like that, but yeah, I totally see that. So speaking of the other party members, I asked for some people for some favorite moments, but I want to hear from you first. So if you had to define if you had to pick a favorite moment between Gak and the other party members one at a time, so Gak and Gideon, Gak and Enid, Gak and Basil, I'd like you to go through and tell me what your favorite moments with each party member has been.
Oh man, that's hard. That is very hard. One of the hard things is remembering the specific details. I think my favorite moment with Gideon is multiple moments. It's just whenever yes.
Nailed it.
It's when Gak will be in Gideon's room or vice versa. And they'll just be kind of debriefing each other on what has happened. Because both of them, it seems like the other people in the party, not to say they can healthily deal with problems, but
It's D and
because
D.
we
No
know
one
that's not the
can.
case. Yeah.
Absolutely fucking not.
But like it almost feels like Gak and Gideon will get together and be like, so that happened, right? And
You saw it too. Okay, good,
yeah,
good.
and Gak will like have like asking Gideon for like what he thought happened, and then Gideon will say something, and Gak will be like, "Oh, interesting. I was like this," and Gideon's like, "Not once had that ever crossed my mind." Like, and it's just so
Huh.
like, yeah. There's so many of those moments that I just love of Gideon and Gak just combining their brains to fully understand what happened.
And still not getting it right sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think those are probably my favorite memories of the Gak and Gideon relationship.
By the way, it is 100% canon that Gideon has no idea that Basil and Enid like each other at all.
Good,
He has no idea.
good. I love that.
Gideon will 100% be the last person to figure that out.
I love it. I
Bar-
there was when Enid like came over to Basil's thing and like set a flower down, um Gak had been, and I don't know if I've said this, but I said it to John because it was happening. But when uh or maybe Basil set a flower down, I don't remember what happened, but I know that people had gone off in the woods while everyone else was still at camp, and Gak was like upset that people were leaving because it was dangerous, and he was like, "We all need to just be at camp." So Gak pretended to be asleep, but he was looking through Chip's eyes the whole time, waiting
oh.
for them to get back, and he saw the flower being set down, and he was like, "I know something's going on." He was like, "They're acting so weird to each other."
They've never given us flowers.
Yeah, I've known Basil way longer. But yeah, I love that. That's so funny. I guess favorite moment with Enid is probably baking brownies the first time,
That
and
was
then
great.
that was also the first time that they talked to Moon, where that
Oh
Gak
yeah.
talked to Moon, and he was able to communicate with Moon, which was wild. Um, so yeah, that's got to be my favorite individual moment because there's a lot of that. But I like the relationships with the whole party. Like, um, Gak and Gideon are kind of like confidants, and Gak and Enid are like brother sister, and then Gak and Basil are like best friends that tease each other, and it's so interesting having those. I'm thinking, man, this is so hard. Favorite moments. I
Hmm.
like I have two favorite moments with Rianne, which would be when they, oh man, maybe three. Just Gak making Rianne act childish is so funny because Rihanna is
Yes.
so put together, but Gak just somehow breaks down the stoicism and just turns him into just a child, and I love it so much. So like, I mean, early on
The
they had that
race.
race, and like Rianne was so in the moment that he like cheated and got on Hikari and stuff. Like,
To
and then Gak tried to minor illusion a wall in front of Hikari to make
make it
Hikari stop.
stop.
Like that was just so that's so wild because it a lot of people would assume it's like a dad dealing with his kid, but like it's not like that
No.
because it because Rianne just devolves into it, and I love that. Um, so that one of my favorite moments. The other one of my favorite moments is when everything went down, uh, and it was just kind of like Rianne and Gak were kind of the only two people that weren't going through something at the moment, and like Gak kind of like stood up without realizing it, kind of taking responsibility, and he had that conversation with Rianne of like, what do we have to do to get our friends to be okay? Like, what do we have? And it was
Oh, when Gideon was dead and Basil
yeah,
and Kale and Yrsa were freaking out and feeling bad that they
yeah,
couldn't save him and stuff. Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, and just everything was falling apart, and Gak unknowingly kind of stepped up to Rianne's level this time, as opposed to Rianne becoming childish. Like Gak was just like, we have to do something. You and I are the only ones who can do something. And like seeing that relationship of like them both matching each other's energies,
Hmm.
I think is a good encapsulation of uh I feel like Rianne and Gak are like uncles of the party.
Yeah, I
Like
could see that.
they're both uncles. So they're brothers, I guess, but like they're both uncles of the party.
Right.
Um and I think that's fun. Um
What was that? Is that like a
what?
gong in the background?
There's a gong somewhere?
I thought I heard one, but I thought it came from your end, but I guess not.
No, it was Rianne.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Um,
Pulls it out of the bag of
I.
holding. Where'd you get a
um,
gong?
but yeah, I guess the compilation of other memories with Rianne is just pranking him. Like doing the pranks with the chicken was so funny. The chickens and the rope trick in his room, so funny, and just doing different stuff like that. I love the spell for training Gax Stony Hitter. Like I love messing with Rian in that way.
Hey, good job. You did it.
You did it. Good job.
So good.
Um, I favorite moment with Yursa. Um, I like Gak was the one who came up with the story about the butterfly and the moth. And I think that's probably my favorite Gak and Yursa moment because he was telling Yursa this story from his childhood to try and relate to Oberyn, and it stuck with Yursa so much that she now uses that metaphor everywhere.
It's because when you think butterfly and moth, you think of Ursa, you don't think of Gak. But yeah, that whole thing
Exactly.
stemmed from Gak's conversation with her, which is funny.
Yeah. Gak was just like, hey, this story my mom used to read me. Everyone was expecting this worm to turn into a butterfly, and it came out as a moth, and everyone was disappointed.
And then I don't remember the end. I think like the forest ended up burning down. That was like my favorite
Yeah.
detail. It's like, what?
Yeah. It went into a
What
whole thing. He was like,
happened?
yeah, and she was like, well, what happened after that? And he was like, well, yeah, the forest like burned down and stuff. And
I was asleep
wasn't
by
good.
that point. I don't remember.
yeah. And I think the reason that I put that part in there is it was like, yeah, sometimes you can't make someone turn into what you want them to do. But also, if you let them fly away, they'll burn down the whole forest. So sometimes you just got to kill them off. Like, I think that's what he was trying to say. Because Oberyn is like, yeah, you can't make him good, but we also should kill him. We can't let him be free.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh,
And then,
Oberyn.
oh, Oberyn. And I guess my favorite moments with Basil have to be just all of their interactions when they're not, like, every interaction they have when nothing's happening. It always devolves into an argument. Like they will just be having a conversation and then it just for some reason just devolves into an argument. And I think it's so fun and I love their like playful banter and stuff like that. I feel like for Basil, I need to look at my list of things because I write down moments when I'm playing.
Cool.
And I'm like, oh, this is a fun little moment. And I feel like I got to look at that list to find a specific moment with Basil because there's just so many.
Can I tell you mine with Gak and Basil? I mean, it's very much what you're talking about, how it devolved into an argument. But again, with the whole pranks at Stormhold Keep, Gak insisting, well, there's a ghost. And Basil's like, no, there's not. Like, I would know. And Gak's like, well, I think the ghost knows what he is. Like, why would... of all the things he could lie about, why would he lie about being a ghost, Basil? That makes no sense. And Basil's like, Gak, no, I've been through the place. There are no ghosts. And Gak's like, well, then who was I talking to, Basil? No one was there. Yeah. It must have been a spirit, an aberration, a ghost. Like, use whatever word you want. And she was like, there's no ghost, Gak. And then it's like she went and was like, not divine sensing, but, you know, like going throughout the keep again because she, like, had to prove Gak wrong because she was like, this is what I'm good at. Like, don't tell me that I'm wrong here.
Oh, God. Yeah, it was so funny because Gak was like,
I'm not going to tell you you're bad at your job. All I'm saying is that I'm talking to a ghost. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, like, you read from that what you will.
Yeah, like, I guess it's new. I don't know.
He
like,
must have just got here.
Yeah, there's definitely one. I don't know what to tell you. Oh, man, that's so good. Yeah, there's so many great moments like that it's hard to pin. I always love every time that Gak and Basil are like, oh, Basil's gonna go up to Gak because I'm like, I know something's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
There's something funny is gonna happen. It's just they have such a pure relationship. So it's hard to choose just one for Basil, I think.
Yeah, no, totally fair. All right, so I kind of misled that question a little bit, so that's my fault. So I had everyone answer with just a favorite Gak moment in general. It's not necessarily like Joe gave one of Gak and Rian, and you know Felicity gave one between
Gotcha.
So these are just some favorite standout moments for Gak. Period. So I'm going to let you know what some people said real quick.
Aw.
All right, so this is from Kayla, who again gave 3. She worked really hard on all this for you. All right, one of my favorite moments of Gak has to be where Gak first initiated the conversation with Ursa. Okay, so this one is about Ursa, about the moth and the butterfly. Hey,
Hey.
such a simple and pure conversation when Ursa was at her lowest spawned such an important symbol for Ursa's character growth. Thanks to Gak for planting that.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I know we just talked about that, so I'm just going to move on
Yeah.
to moment number 2 because we had like a whole ass conversation about that. Another moment was Gak's reaction to what he did with Eldar. Sitting out in the rain and questioning his actions was the first glimpse into the many different complex layers that Gak really is and how his opinions on the whole situation shifted over time.
Yeah. That was a obviously the Eldar moment was important, but I do think the aftermath was important where he just kind of separated himself from the group. And he was holding he was holding Eldar's necklace
Mm-hmm.
and he was just sitting in the rain just thinking. And he was like, "What did I do? What was wrong with what I did? I need to figure out what happened because this clearly wasn't right. So like what actually happened that I missed?"
The problem was Vey. It wasn't Gak. Gideon was like, Gak did
Yeah.
nothing wrong. He defended himself. What do you want from him?
Yeah. There's a whole situation cuz like what happened was the the yeah, Gideon was on Gak's side of like he defended himself, and I'm sure there are other people on Gak's side, but in the reality, everyone was kind of under the assumption that like, oh, a ceasefire had happened. Like everyone was aware, like, oh, we'll hold back for a second and hear what he has to say. Like we can just arrest this guy, and Gak just like didn't know the concept. He was like, this guy's trying to kill us, and he said, okay, I'm done now, and it's like, is he done
Well,
now? Like,
well, that wasn't even the end of it, because Gak didn't just like fire willy nilly. Gak took the necklace, and Eldar tried fighting him to keep it,
yeah,
and then Gak reacted with the spell. So for Gideon was like, yeah, that's perfectly reasonable. If he had surrendered, why would he care about giving that up? He'd only want to keep it
Yeah.
if he kept planning on using it for something.
exactly.
And so Gak was like, yeah, okay, we gave you a chance. You're still, you still fought
Yeah.
back.
And he didn't like Gak didn't realize that he was surrendering necessarily. He was like, yeah, I'm trying to get this necklace off. That's the whole thing. This guy's fighting for me for it, so I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get it off. Yeah, that was big.
That was very big. Just I don't know. It's always interesting to see how many different people react to like the same situation.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're gonna jump over to Yosef as soon as I can find it.
Oh, didn't Kayla have 3?
Did I not say 3?
I think you said 2.
Crap. Give me a second.
Kayla,
You're right.
your words must be
you're
heard.
right. There was a third. That's my bad.
No, you're okay.
Also, love the moment with Gak first interacting with his giant uncle tribe. Another addition to Gak being able to show such a wide range of emotion. It was so cool to see Gak to step up and not back down. Gak low-key can be extremely intimidating when he wants to be.
Ooh, I'm glad. He's a tall boy.
Well, I mean, how tall is Gak again?
Oh man, let me look it up exactly. He is 7'2".
There we go. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fairly tall. It'd be hard to not be intimidating. He's also, as broad as a church, as they say. So
Mm-hmm. City of big shoulders. But yeah, I guess he can be intimidating. He just doesn't want to be. So it was nice. It was nice that moment was noticed.
yeah, absolutely. All right, Joseph. My favorite Gak moment would have to be the time that him and Rianne went painting. On top of that, there also was the time that him and Rianne raced at the beginning of the campaign. I know it seemed like such a silly moment, but it meant a lot to Rianne, and I think it was something that really encapsulated Gak as a character.
Yeah. I'm glad that those stood out. Yeah, the first painting moment was fun too because Gak like they were trying to paint landscapes and Gak just kind of didn't. It was very abstract and Rian was just looking at it like why is he seeing this way? And I think that was a fun like learning moment for both of them really.
I think Gideon's still the only member of the party that has not painted with Rianne.
Yeah. Probably would have painted if we hadn't had to rush and do the book.
I'm
So there we go. Rian, get on it.
excited because Gideon will not be able to paint, and that's not going to be a great moment for him. He's going to get very frustrated.
Yeah,
'Cause-
but maybe that'll lead to a good moment.
I imagine it will. But yeah, like, because I was thinking about it, and I was like, Gideon would do one of two things. Either he's going to suck at it artistically, because Ryan is artistically incapable of doing anything. Like, my stick figures look fat. I cannot do anything correct. And then, like, or he's going to be like those crazy, like, have you seen those people who do, like, the very technical, like, spray paint art where they, like, put a bowl and, like, that's how they'll, like, do their circles. And, like, it's, like, all these
Yeah.
different techniques to create something. I'm like, Gideon would be one of those too. But he's
Yeah.
already really good at a lot of stuff, so I think I'm just going to have him suck ass at painting, and he's going to be so bad, and it's going to make him really upset, like, why am I even doing this?
Well, hey, maybe he would be good at the spray paint stuff, and he doesn't know.
No, he was just born in the wrong time.
Yeah.
He invents spray paint because he's bad at regular painting, just to spite Rian.
That would be sick. He starts tagging everywhere. He's going in Hamba Fort.
But what's that guy? It's the guy who the guy
Banksy?
Banksy, yeah, it's
Yeah.
another I think it's a Banksy.
Gideon is Banksy.
You know, I rewatched Spider-Verse with Joe, like the first one, recently, and I didn't realize that they mentioned Banksy in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's mentioned in the second one.
oh, I never realized that. I was like, I did not, because I think it was just one of those moments that happened so quickly that, like, if you don't hear it, you don't reflect on it. But we had the
Yeah.
subtitles on, and it was like, I think it's a Banksy. I was like, oh my gosh.
Do you want to know what's really funny?
Tell me.
The guy who says, I think it's a Banksy, is Post Malone.
Of course it is.
And
Of
then in
course
the
it is.
second movie, when they're fighting in the art museum, the same audio clip of Post Malone was used. Of the guy going, I think it's a Banksy. Like, he didn't come in and re-record the line. They used the same
the
line.
same exact one.
And he just has the line again in the second movie.
No, that's great. All right, jumping to Rochelle. Oh, by the way, when I asked her about questions, here's what she actually said. I can ask him anything since we live together, so just tell him he's cool. So, you're
Oh,
cool, Nick.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Rachel.
All right, favorite Gak moment. Honestly, my favorite Gak moment was when he used, I think it was Magic Missile against Eldar. I know that was a hard thing for him to go through, but it was such a pivotal thing for his character to experience. He's never had to deal with something. Excuse me. He's never had to deal with something like that. And there's a guy who is so happy-go-lucky and always sees the best in everyone. Having him do that and experience the consequences of doing something he'll need to essentially do the rest of the campaign was very important to watch.
Yeah. That was his first time dealing with a person's death.
Death.
Not just like an animal or something. Yeah, death.
Yeah,
Mortality in a person.
crazy. It's hard. I've had several favorite moments with Gak, and I think it's hard to pick one because there's been so many that just like kind of capture him as a character. But I mean, I've told you this before, like out of game. I think anytime you just make me laugh, it's hard to just not have that. Just be like, oh, that's like a great moment. Because, like I said, anytime that you can just like make someone laugh, it's just genuinely bringing joy into the world, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so having Gak, I mean, I think when we went to go talk to, I believe his name was like Daryl Orville,
Uh-huh.
and then Gak was like, well, we're going to go talk to Daryl or Phil. And everyone was like,
Mhm.
what? What are you talking about? And then he was like, well, like, he said we need to go talk to Daryl or Phil. And then you see John, who's muted, like reacting, and he's like
Yeah.
laughing his ass off as he realized like what you did, because he never suspected that you would do that. You know, it was just one of those
Yeah.
things where it was like, it wasn't like a bro truck moment, but like it was just one of those moments that was just like, that was so, it was just so funny out of nowhere. No one was expecting it, but like it made us just going and talking to a farmer, which is not the most exciting thing in the world. It just made it 20 times funnier than it had any right to be. And just showed that, you know, can totally see how Gak could see that. So again, it just kind of showed that, like, you know, he was listening, and just instead of it being a last name, he was like, well, it could have been two people, which no one else considered.
Yeah.
You know, so
There is. I'm glad that moment stands out because Gax had a lot of those kind of moments throughout, but it was one of the first, and I think that it like sticks in people's minds because it was like, oh, that's what this character is gonna be. But yeah, he was like, I think Basil and Yrsa went and talked to him, and Gideon went with them to like take notes. And then it was Vey, Rhiannon, and Gak that were kind of held back. And like
Yeah.
while that whole conversation was happening, Joe and I were having a whole mini scene in the
Not the
chat
cows.
of Gak trying to get closer to the cows, and he just kept getting closer and closer. And Rhiannon's like, don't touch the cows, please." Just as this important conversation's happening. So like Gak was like, he heard who we were going to see, but he didn't catch any of what happened. Like he didn't know what the conversation was happening. So Basil relays all this information, and Gak says, "Awesome. Did you ask him which name he prefers?" And Rhiannon goes, Basil went,
What?
"I'm sorry, what, Gak?" And well, he
Excuse
said his
me?
name was Daryl or Phil. So what would he like to be called?
Like, we can do either. Just which one is it?
Just whichever one. Yeah. God,
Uh,
I love it. I love it so much. One of the other moments was I think obviously the pimp coats, but he said something about an onomatopoeia and he called it like onomatopoeia.
yeah.
And it's like the idea that he knew that was a word and he just didn't remember what it was. But like he was
Close-
aware of the
close
word
enough.
onomatopoeia.
Oh man, another favorite one for me because I felt like it really helped define the Gak and Gideon relationship was Gideon asking Gak to try and teach him Scorching Ray.
Yeah.
Because I mean that was so early on. Like I want to say that was in like session like 3 maybe. I don't
Oh,
know.
man.
It was early, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Because it was one of those spells that I was like, dude, I know at level 5, I think Gideon got level 2 spells, but I was like, I know at level 5, like first spell he's taking is Scorching Ray. So like, what a great
Mhm.
chance to have like Gak be like, yeah, I can do that. Like, let's see it, and kind of seeing how the two of them had their different views on the magic, I think was very
Yeah.
fun. So
I think I remember Gak was trying to be like, I don't know how to teach you how to do this because I just touched this and I know.
But Gideon was like, fine, just do it. And then Gideon just like watched and observed, and he was taking his notes because he was like, well, there's something here, like it's working.
Yeah.
Like I know wizards can do this, so like let's see it. Then it was the pictures, and he's like, the fuck?
Yeah.
What?
It's so yeah, and that's another great example of seeing how their brains like tackle the same subject and how they complement each other. That's so fun.
Whew. Man, sorry, we've gone over so much, but this has been an absolutely awesome episode. I've been very much enjoying it.
I
Is
have
there
too. Thank you.
we still have a little bit to go though, so don't worry.
Oh God, thank
Do
you.
you have a like what has been your overall favorite arc in the campaign? And if you want to make it like specifically for Gak or just you as a player, we'll take either, but just like what's been your favorite and why?
I think my favorite arc has been this last arc. Um the whole post Oberyn stuff. I love all the arcs, but I've enjoyed Gak's evolution, I think, and that's mostly happened in this last arc of going through
Mm-hmm.
even when they were in the Astral Sea. Gak was realizing that the one time where he took the drink and he could read and he was confused by it. And that starting with that and then the whole Ishna thing and getting the pressure from the book even before they went to the Astral Sea of having to do it and like seeing Gak even before that kind of like his maturity grow and the realization that just because you're maturing doesn't mean you have to stop being childish. And I think all of that has made this last part my favorite arc, really getting to finally delve into Gak's backstory, which has been a mystery to everybody and Gak. Like not knowing that there was a backstory to delve into, and then all of it kind of comes out. Seeing I mean, I had no idea about the uncle and things like that. I just knew that his family was from a tribe. So like all of that giving context to how who Gak is has been a blast for me, and being able to evolve him has been really fun. So I do think this last part has been my favorite. And also, I've loved the combat. I'm not a huge combat fan in D&D, but I think that the combat in this last arc has been extremely unique and very fun to see what John does with some crazy ideas that we have.
There's John always does something new every fight, and I love that. Or even if they're very
Mhm.
brief, he just makes them incredibly memorable, and I think that
Yeah.
that's just a very that's always been awesome. If you so you might not be ready to talk about this, but I kind of am. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts because you were just talking about like character ideas and like your Google Docs. So obviously, I don't think Tales of Evrand is ending anytime soon. But do you have an idea for Evrand Campaign 2 should you return? Just like a basic kind of character concept you were thinking of?
I do. I have a main character concept. I don't want to give too much away. Um,
Can I just know race and class? Or is that too much?
um, what's funny is that I know the race and I don't know the class. I just kind of
Mm,
know I know what the character does, and I'm trying to figure out which class would fit in with that. But what I will say,
okay.
personality wise, and this is funny, I haven't thought of it like this, is kind of like a mixture between Gak and Gideon.
Okay.
And in a way that has two separate things. So this character is a very intelligent character that is, and I'll explain this. I'll give a little bit away because I don't want to give too much, but he's basically an explorer type person, almost like an archaeologist type character. And I think that he and Gideon would get along very well. He's very like manic into the things he's passionate about,
Yes.
but because of that he starts to get a little silly because of how like engrossed in this topic he is, and he just loses himself in explaining to people how cool this artifact he found is and that kind of thing. So it really does kind of feel like a mixture between Gideon and Gak, like the lightheartedness but like the super like intelligent figuring out like how do we find this thing, and I'm thinking like Artificer might be a good move for the
Hey,
character. I don't know. I'm playing around with a couple things, but
artificers are
um
fun. I'm just telling you.
artificers are very fun, and I think like him being a tinkerer and stuff like that would be pretty cool. But yeah, I'm not too sure, but there's a little taste of what future character might be coming.
All right, well, I'm going to give you a little bit of mine. I'm not going to give as much as you because there's still a
Hmm.
lot to be discovered, but I love this very, very base concept so much. Because
Hmm.
whenever I play with someone, because like I knew John because he had played in Afera, but I didn't know him as a DM. I trusted him, but I always kind of go with safer options just to be like, okay, well, let's kind of make sure that we're getting things off at a good start. I'm not brave like you are, Nick. I'm sorry. So, but now that I know John really well, and obviously all of these ideas are pending on John's approval, but I'm certain that we'll find a way to make it work.
Right.
But yeah, so this is just race and class, and you very much helped inspire this just because like I love the creativity behind Yak, but I want to be a plasmoid monk.
Hell yeah, dude. Oh my god, I love it. I want to be a plasmoid so bad. I want to be it so bad.
I just like because very visually, I love the idea of like this monk who, instead of just being like this like perfectly trained, it's almost just like, it's almost more like a Kung Fu Panda style of fighting or like a cartoon style where it's like, he does step of the wind, and instead of him like, doing this like backflip, it's like his body just like turns into like a half circle, and they just like kind of stab through him, and he just misses it.
Oh,
Just
that's so good.
yeah, just this very, very silly, and just because I love characters who like visually I can picture what they're doing because like I love movies. That's like my favorite thing is like I love movies, love video games. So like I'm a very visual person. So whenever I have a character who like I can picture them doing it in like a movie or like some sort of a cinematic, like that's what wins me over. Like if I can't picture that, then I'm like I don't love the character. You know, like I
Yeah.
don't love this idea enough. But like that Plasmoid Monk, I think I could have a lot of really silly fun with it.
Oh man, that's fantastic. I love it. I love it so much.
All right. We're about to move into our final segment here, which is where we kind of wrap up. There's still a little bit to talk and go through, but I'm curious, was there anything about GAC or anything future planned? Was there anything you wanted to discuss before we kind of moved on and wrapped things up?
Let me think real quick. I'm gonna do some deep diving,
Okay.
diving into my brain to think if there's anything that I want to talk about with GAC.
Okay.
Sorry, that's my thinking noises.
I make that noise, but
Yes.
not when I'm thinking.
This is my thinking face.
Oh.
No, I can't think of anything.
Well, GAC is a very special character to all of us. I mean, obviously, especially you, but to all of us, you know, we've all grown to love him and care about him very much. So, as with every episode of Roll Call, I've asked everyone to send some nice thoughts about GAC your way. So, I have some reading I need to do from everyone. We're going to start with Joe. Why do we talk so much on Discord? Because we're good friends, that's why. All right. I just want to make sure I don't cut anything off here. Okay. From Joe. So Nick has been my friend for the past 7 years, I believe. However, it feels much longer than that, and I mean that in the best way possible. When we were still in college together, you and I would sit in the Neuer cafeteria. Neuer?
Yeah, Neuer.
Okay. Long after hours and just talk about random stuff in D&D. Sometimes it would be about painting minis, sometimes it would be about potential characters, sometimes it would be about past campaigns, sometimes it would be about future campaigns that we'd never get to play in. But we always talked about it, and it was always so fun and refreshing because of the way that you choose to approach the game. I feel like once a session you blow my mind, and sometimes I mean that in a positive way, and sometimes it's in a oh my god, I can't believe he's doing that, and oh my god, I can't believe it's working kind of way. You bring a humor and air of levity to every situation you're in, and I'm so appreciative of that. I feel like laughing is easier when I'm around you. I'm very thankful to have you as a friend, and I'm very thankful that I got another chance to play D&D with you, and for once, and for probably the only opportunity. It's nice to be a player with you at the table as opposed to your DM, but I'm very excited for the day where you get to play in another one of my campaigns because of everything you bring to the table.
Aw,
So
that's very sweet.
From Kayla. There we go. Nick is such a wonderful player. Seriously, he's one of the funniest people that I've ever had the opportunity to know and to play D&D with. He has created a character that has so many layers, and it's been a joy to see those layers continue to unfold and develop. But I want to say that Nick is not just great at the comedic moments. He's also created some of the most heartbreaking situations and profound conversations. He's a gem and has a knack for great storytelling. It's been a blast playing alongside him.
Oh, thank you, Kayla.
From your wife.
My wife. My wife.
My wife.
Hey, two white guys doing a Borat? That's what I'm talking about.
Classic.
We can end it here.
Oh, man. I'm so sappy, and I could go on and on about this man, but I think that he's a truly great D&D player. His characters bring so much life into every party he's been a part of. Not only does he try to make them realistic in the sense of having things he's bad at, like every person does, and he uses it to his advantage. He finds a way around what would be a lifelong issue, such as intelligence for GAC in the literal ability score sense, and finds a way to make things work, such as drawing pictures instead of words. Like, WTF, that's so cool. It brings a level of realism, just the right amount of realism, that I think every campaign needs. He's genuinely a joy to play with, and I'm so glad that I get to spend even more time doing something I love with my best friend.
Aw.
Huh.
Thank you, Rachel. She said you're welcome.
I was going to say, she said anything back and didn't pick up. But yeah, Nick, to no small extent, you know, your presence in the game has always been a blessing, and I think that's something that every single one of us looks forward to every week. I think sessions when GAC isn't there, obviously whenever anyone's not there, I think it's always noticeable, but I think particularly with GAC, because of the levity and the joy that he's able to bring, I think it's very noticeable. And John does his best to play Gak when you're not there, but it's just not the same. He does a pretty good Gideon, does a pretty good Brienne, but just Gak, he can work on that. in his defense, he does a better job than I would. But I sent a message, to you to everyone over Thanksgiving, but I just kind of wanted to, say it again here that I think when you're able to make people smile and make them genuinely laugh, you make the world better, even if it's just in like that brief moment. Because I think when someone delivers like a true laugh, they're happier regardless of whatever's going on in their life. Like in that moment when that laugh's going on, they're happy. And like I said, you've made the world a much better place, even through just our little D&D game that we play. And I think we all thank you for that, and we're all grateful for that, especially with so much craziness going on in all of our lives at times.
Yeah.
So just thank you for being who you are. And if you ever think that, Gak's just a silly character that doesn't mean a lot to people, you're very, very, very mistaken.
Well, thank you, Brian. I appreciate it.
All right, man. I love you so much. Thank you for being on this episode. I'm sorry it took so long. I'm glad we were finally able to do it.
Absolutely.
And certainly hope to have you on again further down the line. Perhaps on a new series that we might be doing here somewhat soon, but that's for another time.
That is for another time.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for sticking it out with us. It has been another great episode of Roll Call. Tune in Tuesday for the Adventures of the Salamander Coast. Tune in Wednesday for the continued stories of the Tales of Evrand, or next Saturday for the Isles of Iverion. Thank you so much, everyone, and we will see you next time. Woo!